Welcome to Legal Talks. The main intention of the Legal Talks is a series of lectures which will be more focused on sharing inputs on law. So before starting today's session, let me introduce myself. I am A. Jahangir, a student of law. The main intention of this small talks is to share few inputs on legal issues. And it is my kind request to note that this legal talks are purely made for educational purpose and do not claim the level of expertise. The main intention behind this talks is to give essential inputs to the students so that it can be helpful. And if the student community, especially law student community, finds this talks helpful, then I'll be grateful to them. The main intention is to share a few points on legal issues, okay, and thereby strengthen the inputs in the legal arena or legal area. Okay, so let us once again welcome back to the session. Let us start today's session, and the main topic today we'll be discussing is all about family law. So let's get started. In today's session, we'll be shedding light on introduction, who is a Hindu, and we'll be looking at sources of Hindu law. Okay, so let us start today's session with introduction to family law. Okay, now India is a rich country, especially it's a nation with different religions. Okay, so first comes up as the personal law. So when we talk about personal law, so here we'll be talking about. So why we need a personal law? What is the main intention behind a personal law? Okay. Now, when we talk about personal law, we can say it means a law which is specifically or particularly available to a person or a class of persons or a group where his or her rights and obligations are determined, okay, or determined or found by the law of religion from which they belong. So, as we were talking about, India is a diversified country. We have different religions. So, when we have different religions, so there may be a group of people who may be following one specific religion. So, basically, personal law deals with the religion which they are following. So, for example, the different laws which we have are Hindu personal law, okay, Shariat, which is uh, Islamic law, okay, and Christian law, okay. So these are some of the laws which do exist and people do follow and abide by in India. So moving on further, okay, so India is a secular state. So when it is a secular state, we don't have a particular national region because it's a combination of, or we have people of different religions living together in the great nation. So when we talk about the major religion, the main religion of India, so which accounts to Hinduism, and approximately in terms of population, it is 80.5%. So the largest population in India is Hinduism, which accounts to somewhere around 80.5%. And second largest population is Islam, which accounts to 13%. And after that, Christianity, which approximately accounts to 2.3%. And Sikh Sikh community or Sikhism accounts to somewhere around 1.9%. So globally, over 900 million people do live in India. And here, one more important aspect to take into consideration is, like, when we talk about Hindu personal law includes even Sikh community, Parsi community, okay, and okay, so the Sikh community, Jains, Buddhism, okay, Buddhist community, or part of Hindu law. So this is a very important point we need to make a note of. Okay, excluding only the big religions, okay, which may not come in Hinduism, or which may not fall under the Hindu law, or especially Muslim religion, Christian, Parsi, or Jew by religion. So these people have they don't come, or they don't fall under the Hindu law. Okay, so let's move on further. So let's get started with who is a Hindu. So to answer this question, okay, so all the persons who profess means who adhere, who follow Hindu religion, and to follow Hindu religion, they should be Hindu either by birth or by conversion to the Hindu faith, or called Hindu. So people people who profess in the sense who follow, okay, who adhere to Hindu religion. So to adhere to Hindu religion, they should be Hindus by birth. They should be born in a Hindu family, or the other condition is conversion. Means they would have been they would have been a Hindu, they would have been a Muslim or Christian, and in the later part of their life, they would have taken up Hinduism. So these people come under, or someone who professes Hindu religion and who is by birth Hindu, or who has converted to Hinduism, who has adopted or who has taken Hinduism, will be referred as a Hindu. Okay, I think this makes the definition very clear. Okay, so let's further move on to the next point. Okay, so let's further move on to the next point. Right. So Hindu law, just now in the beginning, we discussed Hindu law as a personal law. Means the people who are born in a Hindu family, the people who follow the Hindu religion, or people who convert, have taken up Hinduism as their main religion, will follow the Hindu personal law. Okay. Now, just now we have discussed what or whom do we call a Hindu. Now, to whom does this Hindu law applies? So it applies to four categories of people. Now, who will be these four categories of people? In the sense, law is applied to a Hindu by birth, means someone who is born in a Hindu family. Okay, someone who is born in a Hindu family. Okay, he so a person born in Hindu family. Okay, next, Hindu by conversion. So someone who was earlier either a Muslim or Christian. Okay, he becomes a Hindu. Okay, he gets converted into Hinduism, or he takes up Hinduism. Then also he has to abide, he has to follow the Hindu law. Okay, so he will be following the Hindu law. Next comes brought up as a Hindu. Now, now there may be an interfaces where a child is adopted by a Hindu family. So obviously, when he is adopted by a Hindu family, so he will be brought with Hindu customs. So in that case, also he will be governed by the laws of Hindu or Hinduism. Okay, Hindu by declaration. Someone voluntarily declares himself as a Hindu. Okay, he makes an voluntary, uh, he declares himself as a Hindu. Okay, so uh, in that case also he becomes an Hindu, right? So these are the different four different situations where a Hindu law comes in picture. First, so he may be Hindu by birth. Second, maybe he would have adopted or he had been converted to Hinduism from other religion. Third, if a child is brought up by a Hindu family, then also he becomes Hindu and he will be governed by the Hindu personal law. And third is Hindu by declaration. So someone has made an voluntary declaration that uh, he adheres or from that day onwards, he is going to be a Hindu. So in that case also, he comes under the Hindu law or he has to follow Hindu personal law. So let us move on further with the remaining part. So Hindu by religion. Now, who comes under this situation? Hindu by religion. So there may be two situations. One is a birth and other one is conversion. Okay. So birth in the sense any person who is Hindu, Jain, Sikh, or Buddhist. Now, earlier also we discussed. So when we use the word Hindu or Hindu law governs all the people who are Hindus by birth or who are Jains, who are Sikh or Buddhist. All this sub communities or sub religions or this group of people who belong to Jains who follow Jainism, Sikhism, or Buddhist or Buddhism will come under Hindu law. Okay. Any person who is Hindu, Jain, Sikh, or Buddhist by birth means he should have born in the family. So when we say born in the family, both mother and father should be an Hindu or considered as Hindu by religion. So this is one situation. Okay. Second situation is one is by birth and second one is conversion. Okay, conversion in the sense any person who becomes Hindu means right from his birth he would have been a Muslim or Christian or any other Parsi or any other religion, but later on in his life he has embraced or he has taken up Hinduism. Okay, he has converted to Hinduism or also considered as Hindu by religion. So here we need to have two aspects in mind. So what are the two aspects? So a person uh, Hindu by religion, when we can say, so there are two situations. One situation is when he is born in a Hindu family. By birth, he is a Hindu. And second one is when he has embraced Hinduism. So the person would have born in other religions, but during course of his lifetime, so he has adopted or he has taken up Hinduism. So in that case, also he becomes an Hindu. Okay. So I hope that this is clear. Let's move on with the next one. Now, Hindu by birth. So, who comes in this category? Whom do we put in Hindu by birth. Okay, so there may be two situations. Hindu parents, when both mother and father of a child are Hindus, obviously he will follow the Hindu tradition. So Hindu by birth, when both the parents are of the same religion. Now here we are talking about Hindu law. So we are referring to father being a Hindu and mother being a Hindu. In this case, it will be uh, he'll be a Hindu by birth. Now, there may be a situation where uh, one parent is Hindu and other parent may be from other religion. So when single parent is Hindu, okay, when single parent is Hindu, any person whose father or mother is a Hindu and the children are brought up as Hindu. Now, in this case, also he'll be treated as Hindu. Like, for example, uh, there are many situations where, for example, X is a Hindu and Y is Muslim. So the marriage between these two, X and Y, okay, and the child or offspring of X and Y will be considered as Hindu. Okay, so these are the 2 points which we need to keep in mind when we deal with Hindu by birth. So let's move on to sources of Hindu law. Now, basically, when we talk about Hindu law, there are two sources. One is ancient sources and other one is modern sources. So one by one, we'll be looking at both what are ancient sources and what are modern sources. Now, before we discuss with the sources of Hindu law, okay, the Hindu law came into existence after independence or post-independence, okay, with Hindu Marriage Act, which was enacted in 1955. Now, the Hindu Marriage Act was enacted in the year 1955, but prior to enacting of Hindu Marriage Act, what was the situation? Okay, so India is a place where it is known for its dharma, okay, rituousness. No, definitely there would have been a system that flourished. Okay, so because all over the world in India is known for its rich culture and heritage. So without a proper law system, so there is no scope for establishment of rich culture and heritage and culture. So definitely the law would have been existed before 1955 or even before Hindu Marriage Act 1955 was enacted. Okay. Now, the codified version of Hindu Marriage Act was formed in the year 1955. So before that, so we had ancient resources. Now, what are the ancient resources? We'll see one by one. The first one is Shruti. Shruti. When we say the word Shruti, so the word Shruti means which is heard. Okay, which is heard. Now, here it creates a doubt. Uh, what can be heard? So, what does it mean like when we say which is heard? Now, when he says which is heard, Shrutis or divine revelations in the sense the enlightened saints, the enlightened monks, enlightened uh, people who flourished or who lived in the ancient India. So they had this revelations. Okay. Whenever there was an issue, whenever there was a problem, and they used to solve this problem with divine intervention. Okay. And this divine intervention had taken up the different forms of religious books that were widely followed and are also being followed uh, now. Okay. So when we talk about divine revelations, which basically deal about the concepts of let it be marriage or let it be partition of property, or let it be adoption. All this were existing in ancient time, but they existed in the form of uncodified law. Okay, so best example for this is the Vedas. Okay, the rules and regulations. Okay, how a marriage has to be performed, or how family partition has to be done, or how adoption has to be done. All this are already laid down in the ancient scriptures, okay, the Vedas. So when we talk about Vedas, so there are four kinds of Vedas. So the Rig Veda, the Yajur Vedas, Sama Veda, and Atharva Veda. So this Vedas are nothing but Shruti, okay, which were heard and which were passed on to the later generations, okay, in the form of scriptures or uh, religious, sorry, religious books. Let's move on further. Then we have the word Smruti. Okay, the word Smruti. So this word means that which is remembered. Okay, that which is remembered. Now, when we have this Shrutish, that is already the knowledge was given, the knowledge was passed on by the enlightened saints, but it has to be passed on, it has to be extended to the future generations. So that's where this Smriti came into existence. Okay, so this is something like there is a sage. So the sage has passed on his knowledge to his disciples. Now, disciples recorded all their points, okay, all the points given by the sage in the form of smrutis. Okay, so that which is remembered or recollected. Okay, so that's again gave or in the later years they were also known as dharma sastras, okay, which talked about all the religions, okay, all the what to do, how to do, and what may be the consequences, what may be the essential factors. This and all were recorded in smritis so that a common man can also understand and follow the things. Okay, so means smriti is just a simplified version of shruti. Okay, moving further, okay, so let's move on further with commentaries. So commentaries are a briefer version, okay, a briefer version of, okay, briefer version of Smritis means, so now, so whenever enlightened people or learned people speak, they speak in few words. So all may not be wise. Okay, so whatever the knowledge that was given by sages would have been in the form of verses, poems, and those verses and poems were a little bit simplified in the form of smruti. Now, smrutis were further simplified in the form of commentaries. Commentaries, in the sense, like very simplified version, recorded version in the form of books, which people can easily understand. Okay. And next, we have customs. So customs or the practices which people uh, like based on, like it's a chain process based on shrutis, based on some smritis, based on commentaries. So gradually people have formed customs in the sense, okay, so if a thing has to be done, so how this thing has to be done, okay, what is the procedure for this, okay, or basically they talk about usage, okay. Right. So the main emphasis in Hindu law is more on customs. Customs are widely followed in Hindu law, okay, which have been established from the time immemorial, and they are strongly adhered in Hindu law system. Okay, so let's move on further with modern sources. When we talk about modern sources, okay, so we have now, from where does this modern source start with? They start with the formation of Hindu Marriage Act. Okay, so when the Hindu Marriage Act was formed in 1955, okay, so what happened after the formation of Hindu Marriage Act? So the uncodified law, Hindu law, still till that time had taken up a codified version. Okay, a codified Hindu law was formed with an Hindu Marriage Act, under Hindu Marriage Act in the year 1955. So here we see three categories. So doctrine of justice, equity, and good conscience. So doctrine of justice. Okay, so justice should be same, so it should not be based on caste, creed. Okay, all the people should be treated equally. Good conscience means, so there should not be any deviation when it comes to applying of the law. So the more emphasis was laid on doctrine of justice to maintain equity and to see that good conscience prevailed every corner of the world. Okay. So next, judicial precedents. Then we have legalization. So legalization talks about uh, framing of rules and regulations. Okay, laying of all the essentials. Okay, making things further like streamlining everything in a legal manner. Okay, so very clearly laying out all the rules and regulations that people have to adhere, people have to follow, so that everyone is given the same justice. Okay, so we have two sources, one is ancient sources, another one is modern sources. So in today's session, we had looked at three concepts. We had looked at introduction, like we had looked at the inception or the beginning of Hindu law. Okay, then we had looked at whom do we call a Hindu? Like we call a Hindu where both the parents of the child or Hindu, obviously the child will also be a Hindu. And second situation is conversion. So when someone has embraced Hinduism, so he also becomes an Hindu. Then we discussed about sources of Hindu law. So we talked about two sources of Hindu law. One is ancient sources, and other one is modern sources. So in ancient sources, we talked about Shruti, that is what was heard. Smriti, that is what was remembered. Then we talked about commentaries. Then we talked about, okay, so commentaries. Then we talked about, okay, then we talked about modern commentaries. Then we talked about modern sources. So modern sources, under modern sources, we basically talked about three things, that is uh, okay, so we talked about legalization, we talked about issues, we talked about doctrine of equity, then we talked about Okay, so that brings us to the end of today's session. In the next class, we'll be looking at few more concepts of Hindu law. Thank you. Have a good day.